Good evening. Can we take our seats because we'd like to begin? It's a wonderful turnout. We appreciate this. And just like church, there are seats up in front, so help yourself. There we are, ma'am, up here. Okay, all our clock, this one is a little over, so I think we'll begin our program for this evening. Welcome to this candidates forum for the election for Madison Borough Council seats. As most of you probably know, there are 4 people, 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans running for 2 openings, and each term is for 3 years. I'm Louise Murray, and I will serve as your moderator for the League of Women Voters tonight. As I hope many of you know, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. By being nonpartisan, we never support or oppose candidates, and our mission is to provide the citizens with opportunities to become informed about issues that affect them, and clearly who you elect to serve on your borough council has an impact on your day-to-day life. As another expression of our nonpartisan commitment, we always have our moderators from outside the jurisdiction that you will be voting on. I live in Morristown, so right up front, I want to ask your indulgence if I mispronounce any name or acronym, because I'm not as familiar, obviously, with the business in Madison. Tonight, we're fortunate that we have the program videoed, and at some point, we may have a pause so that Rob can make a change, and he's promised to give me ample warning. Our format for tonight is that each of the candidates will have the opportunity for a 2-minute opening. The sequence for their presentations was determined by a drawing. I had a little bowl, and I had 4 numbers in it that were blind, and each person picked a number. And so that's the order of their presentation. After the opening, we will have questions from the audience. And as you came in, you had our greeters give you cards. When you have a question, just raise, and one of my league sisters will come and collect your card. As the moderator, one of my jobs is to bundle questions. Oftentimes, the concerns that you have are shared by your fellow residents, so I'll try to bundle them so that we can eliminate any redundancies. In terms of timing, each opening statement by a candidate will be no more than 2 minutes. And a very critical person in our program tonight is my league sister, Jennifer Woodward, who will serve as the timekeeper. And Jennifer has 2 cards, a yellow one, which is a 30-second warning for the candidate, and a red one to say stop. Then I'll say thank you very much and we'll move on. The candidates each will have a minute to answer a question, and we'll have a rotating order of who will begin the question series and conclude. So we'll rotate that around. Around 8 o'clock, I will conclude the question and answer period, and then we'll have the closing statements. And the outside limit for this program will be 8:30. That's enough time. In our experience, an hour and a half is about it for any of us. So without further ado, we'll begin. By the order that we used earlier for the drawing, Mr. Wolkowitz will begin with his opening remarks, and you can watch Ms. Woodward for the timing.
Does a mic check count? All right, so that's okay, everyone can hear me? Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to begin by thanking the Morristown Area League of Women Voters and Louise Murray for hosting this event. and I'm really very surprised by the turnout, so thank you all for coming on what appears to be not such a great evening. I'd like to spend 2 minutes introducing myself to you all a bit. We moved here about 20-odd years ago, and at that time, I was a managing director at Morgan Stanley, and my position required me to run several different businesses over the course of my career there. Some of those businesses were in size larger than Madison's budget, and in people greater than Madison's workforce. So I have experience at managing large operations with a great many people. It was a departure for me, though, because actually my background is much more academic. I have a PhD in economics, and I taught and did analytical research for a number of years, both in government and academia. I found that when I started to do volunteer work, which I was able to do beginning around 2000, when I didn't actually retire, but I retired from daily commuting, that combination of skills, analytical ability in economics and finance, and the ability to manage large operations with many people served me well. And so at the Great Swamp Watershed Association, I chaired the board for a couple of years. At Rotary, I was a member of the board. I also was involved with Sustainable Madison, as well as Madison Matters, and I represented Madison on the 10 Towns Committee. I also find that every year during the capital campaign at the Y, those skills are very helpful. And indeed, I've also run 2 large capital campaigns. One was for a group of fields and a rec center. This was many years ago. And the other one was involved with the renovation of a major building. I would like to think that those skills would be helpful to our council as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And now Astrid Bailey, who is at the far right, drew the second number, so she will give her opening. Ms. Bailey?
Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this debate. Thank you all for attending, and thank you to my fellow candidates for running for office and wanting to serve this great town. I'm a lifelong resident of Madison. I met my husband at Madison High School, and we chose to raise our 4 children here because Madison is a wonderful town with great schools and amenities. I have 24 years of municipal experience. I was first appointed to the Madison Environmental Commission. I then served on the Zoning Board of Adjustment for 14 years. I ran for council in 2001, served 3 terms, retiring in 2010. While on council, I served on the planning board, working to ensure we balanced development and growth. I served as council president, liaison to community affairs, the Department of Health, utilities, administration and borough clerk, police and fire, the joint sewage treatment plant. I was the first council liaison to the schools. During my tenure, one of the things we accomplished was the establishment of the Open Space, Recreation, and Historic Preservation Trust Fund. In a bipartisan effort, Don Bowen and I won the voters' support for a dedicated tax. Since 2004, we acquired land for active and passive recreation, including the Turf Field Complex. We preserved the historic Luke Miller House. We did this by leveraging our open space dollars with state and county money, approximately $11 million in grants. Not only are we preserving the land, we are protecting our aquifer, decreasing traffic and pollution, and protecting the value of our homes. Why have I decided to run again? The actions of the council majority last February to fire the borough administrator, Ray Cody, publicly and without warning, really made me mad. That is not the way we do things in Madison. If elected, I will work to bring balance, consensus, transparent dialogue, and process to the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Our third candidate to introduce himself is John F. Hoover.
Good evening. My name is John Hoover, and I'm a candidate for Madison Borough Council. I'd like to first add my thanks to the League of Women Voters for all their hard work in organizing this forum, and I want to thank all of you for coming out and attending the discussion. I am currently the president of the Board of Health in Madison. In this role, I have reshaped the Department of Health with the board's consensus and approval over the past 2.5 years, including replacing the health officer and registrar in a 3-month period, improving productivity and efficiency by expanding the use of technology, and reduce costs by such initiatives as changing the animal control provider at greatly reduced fee. I am very active in the Madison Rotary Club, including being the liaison to the Madison High School Interact Club and being a member of the Board of Directors. I volunteer with Bridges Outreach, which packages and delivers food to homeless and clothes to homeless in Newark and Manhattan. I volunteer also with the Senior Sense Program of the Morris County Family Service Agency, and I have in the past volunteered with Morris Habitat and the Raptor Trust. I came to the decision to run after being asked by my friends, and because I believe there is a need for Madison to move forward for the benefit of all citizens. My proven ability to identify, plan, and implement improvements in government and non-government organizations, large and small, international and domestic, establishes an excellent foundation to uncover issues and design solutions. But the improvements must be those the citizens of Madison want. Their input is not only desirable, it's crucial. Collegiality and consensus are the oil that will make it happen. My commitment to public service dates back 25 years to my time living in San Francisco. I served as volunteer president of the Family Service Agency of San Francisco. I was on the board of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the board of the Bay Area Red Cross, and was portfolio chairman at United Way of the Bay Area. My sense of community is a deep-seated commitment to people, to helping others become more self-sufficient. The same applies to Madison. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final candidate to introduce himself is Carmen A. Pico. Mr.
Hi.
Pico?
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Carmen Pico. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this and the fellow residents for coming to be interested in what their candidates are going to say. I was born and raised in Madison. I love Madison almost as much as I love myself. I mean, no, all kidding aside, I'm a working man. I know what it's like to not have a lot of money. I know what it's like for struggling families to try to stay in Madison. I've been a volunteer coach and umpire for the last 43 years. I enjoy working with the children, and I want to try to keep Madison a safe place for all these children so that they have a place to play, a place to get educated. I was on the Board of Adjustment in Randolph for 10 years. I was on the school board in Randolph. While I was on the school board, I saved the school board thousands of dollars in their infrastructure work because of my maintenance background. I feel that with the conditions of our roads here, that my experience in maintenance will help them. Growing up, I worked in construction, and I put in water mains, sanitary sewers, we build roads, and these are some of the problems that Madison is facing right now. So with my experience, when a construction company comes and says the job needs to be done this way or that way, I'll be able to help the council figure out exactly if it's the right way to do it. Like I said, I'm a working man, and I enjoy living in Madison. We moved down to Madison for a short period of time to help my wife's father on a farm, and we moved back to Madison, to the place that I love, and it would be a great pleasure for me to represent all the Madisonians in Madison when I'm elected to the council. And also, my family has been in Madison since the late 1800s. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the question and answer period, and I see already there's no shortage of questions. We're going to start the order with Ms. Bailey, and each of the candidates will have 1 minute to answer each of the questions. And as I said, we'll have about 45 minutes of this part of our program. And so, Ms. Bailey, I will start with you to ask this question, and it would help if I don't need to repeat it again. If elected to serve on the council, will you have any recommendations that would improve borough employees' overall performance at no significant increase or possibly a decrease in the salaries?
Okay. I think one of the things Ben and I have been talking about all along is that the need for strategic planning to create efficiency, to determine what our needs are. Are there new needs that our employees need to meet? Can we redefine their jobs to be more efficient? We need to figure out what is important, where we're going. Is it to deliver the services, to improve the infrastructure? We need to prioritize. We need to identify the sources of revenue. We need to determine what is good for the greater good, and the bottom line is the most important thing to consider when we decide those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Hoover.
Yes, thank you. Good question. My background and experience comes into play here quite heavily. I think that one of the things we need to do is make sure that there's a good performance evaluation system in place. I think one was established last year. We're using it at the Board of Health. I think we also need to look at making sure that there's a defined set of processes and procedures that employees can follow, that we optimize and maximize automation, and that we make sure that our employees have the tools and techniques and training to be as efficient and productive as possible. I think if you can increase their productivity and efficiency, you can make them more productive, and you don't have to increase their salaries.
Thank you. Mr. Pico.
Knowing what Madison used to be, knowing what Madison is, I want to take Madison into the future with dealing with their employees. If you have respect for your employees are going to have respect for you, and their productivity is going to be high because they know that their job is greatly appreciated. When I'm elected to the council, I will be one of the people that would be dealing with them, asking them what they need, what they don't need, because sometimes they ask for things that they don't need only to get the things that they do need. So my idea is that if you treat your employees with respect, you will get more productivity out of them, and they will respect you as a direct individual. Thank you.
Mr. Welkowitz.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by saying that implicit in questions like that, there always is a possibility, and not suggesting that the questioner is in that camp, that we're demonizing public employees because we find ourselves in some economic straits. I'm not in that camp. I do think, however, that when an employee leaves, particularly one who's in a management position, that it's wise to consider whether you could recast the role, whether there's some efficiencies to be realized from a reorganization. I also have used technology hands-on, often and frequently, to differentiate businesses, and doing that by making my employees much more efficient. And there's always a capacity to do that. The interesting thing is there's often a capacity to do that at no real expense, because there are organizations willing to underwrite such endeavors, particularly in the public sector. So I think the possibility of improving the performance of our employees and keeping our costs more or less where they are is certainly feasible. It's something we've worked for, and I welcome that challenge.
Okay. Now, I have 3 questions here about taxes. So I'm going to try and combine them so that we'll have the opportunity to discuss other issues as well. The interest is on keeping, and this question will first go to Mr. Hoover, and then we'll have Mr. Pico, Mr. Welfowitz, and then return to Ms. Bailey. The interest is in keeping taxes low and while maintaining the level of service. How can you achieve this, and would you include in your comments any experience you've had in controlling costs?
I think of the last 2 years, the annual increases in taxes by this administration are less than 3%. And the prior decade, they averaged about 6% increase. I think what we want to do is we want to make sure that there is, Carmen and I want to make sure that there is no increase in taxes in 2013. How can we do that? We want to first grow revenue sources. We want to continue to be a leadership role in shared services agreements, like the joint municipal court, health services, and the building department. The pilot revenue that we receive from the GBR sale and redevelopment will also help us. We want to reach out to universities and other organizations to identify new opportunities for sharing services, raising revenues, and containing costs. Eliminate unnecessary redundancies in positions, tasks, and activities. Further expand the use of technology to enhance efficiency and productivity. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pico.
Wow. I'm glad that John put me into his statement. Now it makes things a little bit easier for me. Taxes are always the main thing in any town. When I lived in Randolph Township, the township there was able to stabilize taxes for 6 years in a row. How did they do that? They did it by not having any redundancy in any of the departments. When the person left, they started the new employee out with a lower salary, so that saved money. And the tax burden on the families in town is what really concerns me. So when I was on the school board also, we kept the taxes down for the school tax by making sure that every dollar was spent in the right direction. And we didn't throw money away for foolish things. We made sure that every dollar that we put into any program was the right amount of money to put in there. And that's the way you could keep your taxes down, is by identifying where the money is being wasted. Thank you.
Mr. Wilkowitz.
I'd like to begin by just pointing something out. John Hoover mentioned that taxes over the last couple of years have increased by 3%. There is a 2% cap now on property taxes, so even if there was an inclination to increase it by more, you're stuck. Right? When our taxes went up by 6%, I would suggest you take a look at state averages, which went up decidedly more than that. So I don't think our performance is anything to be concerned about one way or the other. What is concerning is we have a 2% cap, and we do have expenses that will increase over time. And Austria and I have 4 suggestions. One, Austria mentioned strategic planning. The reason for that is because if every decision is ad hoc and outside a framework, you often impose inefficiencies through your decision making. We are advocates of not only shared services, but other ways of looking at how we can deliver services less expensively. I mentioned grants earlier. There are very significant grants to underwrite a large part of our operations. And finally, the just day-to-day efficiencies that we ought to be able to realize.
Thank you. And Ms. Bailey.
Thank you. I, too, was going to mention that we do have a state-mandated cap. And in the Monday Star Ledger, it said that the average tax increase over a 10-year period, similar to the tenure that I served, it was over 70% increase in taxes. Madison is nowhere near that, and we're doing very well. In terms of trying to maintain services and keep our taxes at a low rate, we do, as Ben need to put in a strategic plan. We do need efficient operations. We should expand shared services, not only the courts, the health department contracts, but people sharing a tax assessor like we do now with Milburn. Sustainability right now gives grants. We should take advantage of that. Being energy efficient lowers costs. We also need to have state aid and plan for state aid when we do roads. That will help. And zoning. Zoning is extremely
Thank you.
important. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I have 2 questions about the Madison Health Department, so I presume that's of interest to many in this room. And this question will go first to Mr. Pico. With the loss of 3 contracts with the health department, how will this monetary loss be replaced, or will services be cut? And is there any danger of being sued?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm not really familiar with what the health department is doing, but I can tell you this, that we might have, if you say we lost 3 towns, I know that John is very diligent in getting more towns to come, and we should wait and see when January 1st comes to see how many towns we actually are going to have. We may not be losing the towns that everybody seems to think that we are. But when I get on the council, if I don't know anything about a question, I will do everything I can to find out what the reason is, find out what the issue is, and try to be on top of it. Because my duty to the township is to be knowledgeable into every aspect as to what the town is giving us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilkowitz.
Thank you. This whole business with the health department, I find particularly disturbing. I find it disturbing really on two levels. One is that indeed we have lost 3 accounts. 2 of those accounts have been with us for odds on 30 years. The other part is one of the people up here, John Hoover, who is president of that board, has run on his success with the health department and has told us that there are 5 accounts and growing, a paradigm for the future. I think that's unfortunate, and I don't feel good about mentioning it, but I think we had to set the record straight on that point. As far as how to solve the problem, the health department is an autonomous unit of our government. And I would like to say that if I get on the council, I will roll up my sleeves and help solve the problem. Indeed, I will do what I can. But initially, what we have to do is create an organizational structure where it is no longer autonomous. That's my view. We pay for it. The council allocates the money. The council should have a say in how it's run.
Thank you. Ms. Bailey.
Well, I agree with my running mate Ben Wolkowitz. The health department is a very important entity to the people of Madison. We've all come to appreciate the services it provides, and but we don't want to spend more for our services than anybody, you know, and too much for the services that we are getting. So yes, the Board of Health is autonomous. But we hold the purse strings. So I think as a community, we're going to have to work together to make sure that we continue to get contracts. There are 100 health officers in the state of New Jersey. There are 566 municipalities. The law requires that each of us use the services of a health officer. So there are communities that are going to be looking for services, and we have a strong department, and we should work to try to get new contracts. Thank you.
Mr. Hoover.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm glad I have the opportunity to clear the air on this as well. First of all, as it was mentioned in the Borough Council meeting last night, there is a cap that has been given to the Board of Health about how much the borough is going to fund. So there is no question about the borough funding any more than what they're funding right now. Okay, number one. Number two, there are now 5 contracts that we have with municipalities that expire at the end of this year. 2 of them have notified us formally. A third has not, and we may extend into next year and may even recapture them. We've got 2 more that we're right on the brink of signing. So I don't think we're going to lose any money. I think we're doing very well. 2002 study that was done by Don Bowen said that we had 10 contracts back 10 years ago. We were up to 22 before that in the early 1990s. It was reduced to 10 in the early 1990s. Okay, all towns now, because of their economic environment, go out and seek competitive bids for their contracts each year. I still think the model works, okay? And by the way, all these decisions are made by the full board, not by John Hoover.
Thank you. Okay.
Is there an opportunity for rebuttal?
Okay, we will, I can see this as, I'm getting other questions. I can see this as an important issue. What we'll do is have, each candidate will have another minute to engage this question of the health department. And Mr. Pico, since you started, we'll begin with you. Do you want to make an additional comment?
If I may,
and it's 1 minute.
if I may, I'd like to give my minute to John Hoover because he's the one that everybody seems to be attacking on this issue. I don't have anything else to say about the Board of Health at this time.
Okay. Well, our rules are that each candidate has his own time. So,
Okay.
But you can certainly take a pass. So, Mr. Welkowitz, yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry you used the word attacking. My feeling is there's a record, and we're running on our records, and you all as voters need to know what the records really say. And so that's all I was trying to get at. What I find disturbing is that the New Jersey League of Municipalities, when the 2% cap went into effect, surveyed their membership and asked them, now that we have a 2% cap on property taxes, how do you intend to save money? 81% of them said by outsourcing our health services. So there's a huge demand out there that's for health services. We want to be a provider. So I ask a very basic question. How did we manage to lose 3 accounts, 2 of them long-standing, And by the way, I hope we get that third one back, but my understanding is all three, two formally and third verbally, have indicated they're not renewing beginning of the year. I could be wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, but that's what I understand to be the case.
Ms. Bailey?
I agree with what Mr. Wolfowitz just stated. Thank you.
Mr. Hoover?
Yeah, I stand by what I said in the beginning. We have 5. We were formally notified that we're going to lose 2. We may get another one. There's 2 more that are very close to signing with us. The management of the Board of Health is by the board, the full board. There are 6 permanent members, 2 alternate members. They vote and they decide, and they do the leading as well as me. Okay, we have done a lot to increase the productivity and efficiency of the Department of Health. We reduced the full-time staff by eliminating benefits costs. We changed animal control provider, greatly reduced cost. We've increased automation. All marriage licenses are now automated. They used to do it by typewriter. Dog and cat licenses are automated. The reimbursement requests for Medicare were written by hand and are now fully automated. The sanitarians now have tablets, and they're going to start using those tablets, okay? And that will eliminate and duplicate and triplicate entry, okay? And we implemented a time tracking system for tracking what our employees, where they're spending their time, and how to make them more efficient and effective.
I just have one thing, just one little thing I'd like to say to Ben. Can I just take a little, 1 second or 2?
Why don't you do that in your conclusion?
Okay.
Okay, and we'll move on to, I have a couple of questions on sustainable Madison. And this question will be for Mr. Wolkowitz. And that is, do you support sustainable Madison? And in your response, please comment on how sustainable Madison would or would not fit into the future plans of the borough.
Thank you. I'm on Sustainable Madison's committee, so I guess I do support it. And I've been working quite diligently on a particular project which has to do with composting. And the interesting aspect of all this, and it may seem like small ball game, but it actually is quite important. I had heard about industrial composting as a way to save money, because you take food waste and instead of having to cart it away on a regular basis, which is quite expensive, you turn it into usable compost. And I found that this was ongoing in Asia, this was ongoing in Europe, and it's ongoing in Chatham Township. And when I read that, I went over to Chatham Township and said, what is going on here? Turns out that thanks to a Sustainable Jersey grant, which you get if you have a sustainable committee in your town and apply, they were able to put in a $25,000 composter at their high school that takes that waste and turns it into compost. As I like to say, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Thank you. Ms. Bailey.
Yes, thank you very much. I actually was on the council that began working on Sustainable Jersey, and because we saw that it was a good thing, we saw that it was going to promote energy efficiency, would help lower costs across the board in the buildings of the municipality. It provided a lot of grants because it was the new thing, the thing that would help the towns lower their costs. And I stood with Betsy Ullman, the chair of Sustainable Jersey, Sheeny Tsukamoto, Mayor Holden at Atlantic City, 2010, I guess it was, the fall of 2010, and we received our certification, our award, and we were very proud of that because we had worked really, really hard to do that. But then nothing happened. The council did not put together an ordinance to support the committee for Sustainable Jersey. The committee languished, it didn't work, and as a result, we lost our certification and we're back to ground zero, and we are trying to now get back our certification. Thank you.
Mr. Hoover.
Thank you. One of the things that was said early on that I totally agree with is the need to do some long-term strategic planning. I think in this particular case for Sustainable Madison, while I support the concepts and some of the initiatives, I think we really need to take a hard look at what our priorities are in Madison. Where does composting stand versus fixing the North Street pump station or anything else that may happen? Okay, where are our priorities? What is the cost going to be, and what benefit are we going to get out of doing this? Okay, it's important for us to have a Sustainable Madison, absolutely. I'm just concerned about looking at what initiatives are included in there, how much it's going to cost, and what we're going to get out of it. Thank you.
Mr. Pico.
I'm in favor of, having a sustainable Madison. I don't know a lot about that committee, but I could bet $1 to a donut that after tonight, I'm going to investigate and try to get as much information as I can, because maybe that might be something that I might want to get involved with, because, the council should always look for ways to save money. And if this is a way that would be saving money, and it's a good environmental way, because we all have to worry about the environment. I mean, when it comes to recycling, I don't know if there's anybody that recycles more stuff than I do. I always take out a lot of cans of recyclables every time we have it every Wednesday. So, I mean, I'd like to get more information on sustainable Madison, because I love Madison so much that if this could help Madison, I'd be more than happy to get involved and be on that committee. Thank you.
Mr. Wilkovich, would you like another minute? I would. Okay, and so then now, Jennifer, each candidate will have another minute.
I would just like to say that what Sustainable Madison is doing, like many of our committees, is not an either-or proposition. The pumping station on North Street and Sustainable Madison have one thing in common. They're both in Madison. After that, it's over. Sustainable Madison will be supported by grant money. It will save our town money. It is not an infrastructure cost. It doesn't take money away from anything else. It won't increase your taxes. There are ways to make environmentalism pay and save you money. And Sustainable Madison, I feel very strongly about, is a model of how that should be done. And Betsy Ullman has done a huge and terrific job. It is made up entirely of volunteers. Parenthetically, let me tell you, Morristown has a full-time Sustainable Morristown person paid for by a grant. And we're up against that person when we go out for grant money. So there are towns that have supported it, done it right, and benefiting, and then there are towns that worry about comparing it to things that it doesn't compare to. Thank you.
Ms. Bailey, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Wolfowitz that this can only enhance our town, and it's not something that it's going to cost us. It's actually going to reduce our costs in the long run, and I think we'd be foolish not to take advantage of it. Thank you.
Mr. Hoover.
Yeah, grant money is great. I am all for grant money, and I think that's one way to reduce the cost of providing any services that we provide here in Madison. I'm glad to hear that Sustainable Madison is not going to impact our tax dollars. That's absolutely fabulous. It really is. So I'm for it. I just think that we need to take a programmed, planned approach and set our priorities of where we're going to send our resources. I would like to see us get more volunteers. I would like to see us tap the universities for technical resources, qualified resources, and volunteers. And I would like to move forward with it. But I think we need to be programmatic about it and be careful about how we do it. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Mr. Pico, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I don't have much to say. I mean, like I said before, I want to know more about the committee. And it sounds like something that I would be very interested in, because we lose our environment, we lose our lives. So our environment is very important, and I think we should look into the Sustainable Madison, and maybe we'll be able to save some of our lives, because we're going to be recycling more things and using compost and generating more interest in that area. Because I know that there's a lot of people in town who don't even want to recycle, and it's sad. I mean, if you go to some of these functions, they don't have a bin for recycling. Everything, the soda cans, the bottles, the garbage from the papers, they're all mixed in with the regular garbage, and that's all stuff that's going to go to the landfills. So our environment is a very important issue in my eyes. Thank you.
Okay. This question will start with Ms. Bailey. For some time, there has been a debate about investing in open space, recreation, and historic preservation. What is your position on these types of investments?
I think they enhance our values of our homes. And I was the one with Darren Bowen in a bipartisan effort we established the Open Space, Recreation, and Historic Trust Fund. We got the voters of Madison in 2003 to overwhelmingly support a dedicated tax. We leveraged our dollars from our trust fund for county money and state money that provided preservation of the Luke Miller House on Ridgedale Avenue. It provided passive recreation and active recreation. The artificial turf fields that we are proud of and we support came because of the 49 acres we got from the Open Space Trust Fund from the county, the state, and our own money. Not only does it provide land, it provides aquifer protection. You know, we're very lucky in Madison. We have waters that comes from the aquifer, and we don't have to buy it.
Thank you. And I would ask the candidates to speak a little closer to the mic. I'm okay, but evidently people in the back have a hard time hearing. So, Mr. Hoover, you're primed.
Thank you very much. I think the open space, recreation, and historic preservation, is a noble and good effort for the community. There's no doubt in my mind. I think, again, that we need to be very careful about how we fund these things and make sure that they're not funded from our taxes and that we can get the funds either by grants, contributions, or in other ways. Okay, but I think, again, we also need to take a look at our priorities and where we're spending our resources and our time and effort, because there's a lot of things that have to be done here in Madison. Thank you.
Mr. Pico.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. For some time, there has been a debate about investing in open space, recreation, and historic preservation. What is your position on these types of investments?
Well, I believe that open space is valuable because you don't want to cover up all the open space that you have because the water does not get back into the ground. As far as recreation goes, the 49 acres, in my opinion, when we went into that, that's probably the best thing that ever happened to the children of Madison. They needed a place to play. They have a wonderful place up there. As a matter of fact, I umpired quite a few games, girls softball games up there, and it was the best experience that I've had in the 43 years that I've been umpiring. As far as historic preservation, you know, some of these houses that are being taken down, like I said, I was born and raised here in Madison, and we should make sure that these houses doesn't have any historical value. Every time you turn around, somebody's taken down a house that has been in Madison for many, many years, and they put up all these gigantic big houses. Not a lot of people in Madison that can afford that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Welkowitz.
Yes. I just wanted to point out that actually open space is paid for by...
Could you speak into it? Yeah.
Oh, you can't hear me? How's that? Good, thank you. Can I start over?
Okay.
Okay. What I was saying was that open space is in fact paid for in part by our tax money. There is a dedicated 2 cents per $100 tax that was passed overwhelmingly by the citizens of Madison in a referendum vote several years ago. So it's not, and that money is dedicated for that purpose. You can't reach into it and take money out and use it for something else. And alternatively, open space funds can't be taken out from some other aspect of our government. So it's entirely dedicated. Insofar as the value of open space, I'd commend to anyone who's interested a book called The Benefits of Open Space. It's by Professor Hoffman at Rutgers University. It is an often quoted, very fine group of essays that show that open space literally pays for itself and then some. So it's a wonderful investment for our town. People, those of you who own real estate in town, I suspect that most of you should know that your real estate benefits from being near open space.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll turn to another infrastructure issue, and this question will start with Mr. Hoover. How can we cut our electric rates?
I think there's a very simple answer to how we can cut our electric rates. We want to reduce them by 10%. Currently, we're generating about $3 million in excess revenues, okay? And the wholesale electricity purchases that we're going to achieve in 2014, 15, 16, and 17 will drop rates by an average of about 40 to 45%. That will provide us with a minimum savings of about $4 million annually, in addition to the $3 million we're generating now. So I think providing a 10% reduction in residential tax rates is not going to be any burden, but it's also going to be beneficial. But I think what we ought to do is provide and put the rest of the money into the capital budget funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pico.
Well, since John and I are in agreement about the 10%, I'd just like to say that most of the people that I spoke to, when they asked us about that, they're very happy to see that they might be able to save some money in their electric costs. I mean, people use electricity for everything, their computers, their TVs, everything in the house is just about used for electricity. And a lot of these people are struggling. They're struggling because their electric bills are $400 or $500 a month. So if there's a way that we could reduce the amount of money that they pay, it'll be more money in their pocket and more money for them to buy food for their children and spend the rest of the money probably going down to our downtown Madison shops and supporting those people. Because those people down there, they need support. So I'm all in favor of giving a reduction to all the residents of Madison in their electric costs, if it's possible. And John and I have a plan, and we believe that it will work. Thank you.
Mr. Wilkowitz.
Yes. I've actually spent some time studying electricity. It makes you wonder about me, I know. But on our website, there's a white paper called Reducing the Cost of Electricity. I didn't write it tonight. Electricity costs are very complex. There's the cost of the actual electricity itself. There's the transmission cost. And then there's a peak load pricing surcharge, which would take me at least 30 minutes to explain, and I probably have 30 seconds if I'm lucky. I would like to believe we could reduce everyone's cost of electricity by 10%. I hope 10% is on the low side, but my crystal ball is out for cleaning. I can't tell you what it's going to look like 3-4 years from now. And as I said, that's only one component. Indeed, that one component will go down some 40 to 45%. But I can't tell you what's going to happen to peak load pricing. I can't tell you what's going to happen to transmissions costs. And also, when you talk about taking it out of tax dollars, just remember, one of the things in this town is that we own our electric utility. If we give you a dividend and reduced expenses, you were taking it out of some other pot. Thank you.
And Ms. Astry. And Ms. Astry, we'll ask you to take the microphone closer to you.
Thank you. I think it's very premature for a candidate to say that they're going to cut taxes 10%. There are 6 members of the council, and they are the decision makers, and I think that's where that decision should be discussed amongst the 6, and to take everything in consideration. I don't think you should be looking at electric rates in a vacuum. Yes, it would be very nice to do that, and certainly with the new contracts that are being signed for energy, we should hopefully see a reduction in our electric rates. That would be a great thing, but I don't think that any candidate should be promising that kind of thing right now. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move to now, Mr. Pico will have the opportunity to respond first. Are you satisfied with the fundraising and loan payments for the new fields?
You know, I'm very satisfied because a lot of people don't know the hard work that the committee is doing, going out and getting donations. A lot of times the public only knows what they hear from just gossip going around town. Those people will have the money. As a matter of fact, I believe that the first year's payment has already been accounted for. And these are dedicated people to the children of Madison. You know, people complain about the 49 acres, but you go up there some Saturday and see if you can find a parking place because the place is being used so much. This past weekend, I went up there, and I had to park on the grass because there was so much activity going up there. But as far as the fundraising goes, let's see how it plays out. People are going to say it's going to blow up, we're going to have to pay. I'm saying give those people a chance. Let's see what's going to happen down the line. If they say that they're going to do the things they say, because most of the people on the committee are like me, and I guess I have to stop.
Thank you. Mr. Wilkowitz.
Yes, thank you. Austria and I are on record for saying that we will work with the council, the mayor, and members of the Madison Athletic Foundation to facilitate payment of those fields from private funds. We have also objected in the past to the fact that the fields were built without any funds in place, private or otherwise, and all that money has now to date been borrowed. I understand from public statements that the MAF has approximately $200,000 in the kitty to pay for the fields. Unfortunately, the fields cost approximately $3.3 million. If we were to issue a 10-year note, flat amortization of that principal over 10 years at current very competitive, very low, historically low rates, it would still cost us approximately $375,000 a year to pay off that note. I understand we have raised $200,000 so far. Help is needed. We will certainly pitch in. I agree with Carmen.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Asti.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Bailey.
Yeah, that's okay. You can call me what you want, thanks. Yes, I do support the turf fields, contrary to what some have said. One of the main reasons we established the Open Space Trust Fund was to get land for much-needed recreation fields. That being said, from 2004 on, everyone who wanted turf fields knew that we were going to have a private-public partnership in order to do it. Just like Summit, just like Chatham, all our surrounding towns, they had a plan in place to fund the fields. We did not have that. It's harder to fundraise when the fields are already built. But some on council have promised it won't cost the taxpayer a dime. Ben and I will work to help make sure that that is what we do. We raise the private funds to support the turf fields and not burden the taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hoover.
First of all, I think the turf fields are an absolute boon to this town. They're absolutely a wonderful, wonderful asset. We get in a quarter, every quarter we get about 100,000 people up there per quarter, maybe 30,000 a month. The 3.4 million that the turf fields cost was indeed borrowed. It's a bond anticipation note. Okay, the interest on that, the servicing, is paid for totally by user fees. And so we've got about, the first set of the bond anticipation note lasts 4 years, then it's renewable for another 6, so we can have 10 years worth of a bond anticipation note that's going to be, where the interest is going to be paid for by the user fees. In terms of paying off the note, we've got 10 years to do that. The fundraising that's been done so far is absolutely phenomenal. Everybody's working out hard. I saw Mr. Cataronello downtown selling advertising space the other day, so is Dave Carver. Everybody's out raising funds. And I think it's going to work, and it's going to work very well. Thank you.
Would you like another minute? And then,
Yeah.
each candidate will have a minute.
Thank you. Yeah, I find this issue very concerning. As I said earlier, I've been involved, integrally involved, in 2 major private fundraising efforts. And I don't doubt that people are working as hard as they can. But the unfortunate story is, for the moment, it doesn't add up. And it may well be that user fees cover bond anticipation notes, but it's the principle that's at issue. Bond anticipation notes have a history and a function that's entirely different than funding a long-range product. It's a stopgap measure. And I also hate to say this, but as these fields wear out, we're going to need to be allocating money to their replacement. They're guaranteed for some 10 years. We're already a year into it. And not only haven't we paid for them, but I haven't heard anybody talk about putting aside money for the obvious eventuality when they need to be replaced. I also, one other thing, I don't have time.
Okay,
I'm done.
you're done.
Thing, and I'll say it for you, Ben.
Okay, Ms. Bailey.
No, thank
And
you.
please bring your,
I agree with Mr. Wolkowitz. I'm sorry. I agree with Mr. Wolkowitz. The numbers just don't meet the expectations right now. Also, the interest rates are low now, but they can fluctuate. And the pushing it out further, the bond, may cause us to even spend more for those fields, because you're going to have to put a new carpet down, perhaps before you even finish paying off the bond.
Mr. Hoover.
Well, I disagree with Mr. Wolkowitz. I think that there has been and is a plan in place. I think, to me, it makes sense, it adds up, and is going to happen. Thank you very much.
Mr. Pico, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I like to just say things. It was mentioned earlier that you don't go after money after the fields are made. But the problem is that I've been going to like 90% of the town council meetings, and when this issue came up, it's very difficult to go ask people for money before the fields are done. I mean, there were so many people. There were some people in favor, some people against. The council couldn't act on certain things because they were trying to satisfy both sides. So I'm 100%, as God is my judge, that these fields are going to not cost the township any money, that the people working on it, they're diligent, they love the children. You know, you got to put everything else aside and think about the children. They are our future. We must take care of every aspect of their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now, I had to make a judgment call here because this question may be a little sensitive, but when you get this many cards about something, I think it must be on people's mind. And so this question will start with Mr. Wolkowitz, and I'm just going to not combine questions, but just try to summarize. And do you want to comment on the dismissal of Ray Cody?
It's the reason I'm running. I come from a fairly humble background, and I've seen people abuse power at the expense of people who couldn't do anything about it. I saw my parents in that situation. And so it struck an emotional chord with me when that happened. On any basis whatsoever. In fact, I don't even need to talk about it. I could just quote Sally Capone, who wrote in a column that in her 50 years of covering boroughs, etc., government, she's never seen anything like it. And I'm also concerned that there has been really no accountability. I have heard no one involved in that situation apologize to the town. I don't believe anyone's apologized to Ray Cody, and I think we all deserve it. That was truly a low point. And I can't tell you, as I walk around town and meet people for the first time in many cases, everyone has the same comment. That's not Madison.
Okay, Ms. Bailey.
I think I said in my opening statement that I thought I was retiring in 2010. And what happened to Ray Cody in February was inexcusable. You don't treat people like that anyway. And I think the Presbyterian Church meeting said it all. There was not one voice that said we support the council majority decision. And every single person in that church stood up and said what the council majority did was wrong. We don't treat people like that in Madison that way. And that's why I'm running, because we need accountability, we need balance on this council, we need dialogue, and we need to do it in a right process, and we need to treat each one of us respectfully. Thank you.
Mr. Hoover.
Thank you. It's very, very hard to disagree with Astrid and Ben and their comments about this. I sat through all of those meetings in the spring. I work very, very closely with Ray Cody and Jim Burnett. They're very, very competent people. They work very, very hard. They handled it with grace and aplomb, with that dismissal, and recovered very, very well. But I think it is important for us to work collegially going forward. Every single one of us, whoever gets on the council, has to work as a team. Okay, we've got to work together. The only way we're going to get things done is through synergy. And I think we do have to respect everybody that we deal with. Okay, whether it's our competitors or our staff or whoever, or our customers, we have to be very respectful. Okay, so I don't think there's anything more to say, in all honesty. It was not a situation that I was pleased to sit through.
Mr. Pico.
Well, I'm amongst people that never make any mistakes, I guess. You know, everything in life there's a decision that needs to be made. The general public does not know what went on in the council chambers. They don't know what brought this on. I'm pretty sure that Mr. Cody had an inkling, and I'm pretty sure that he knew that something was going to happen. Why do we have to waste time worrying about what happened in the past? What happened in the past has been rectified. I like Mr. Cody. I think he does a wonderful job. Maybe the council didn't make the best decision at that time, but we're all human. When they saw that the public was so angry and upset about it, they did the right thing. Even though they in the beginning, it may not have been the right thing to do, but they realized their mistake and they corrected it. In my opinion, that tells me that that council is a good working council, and that's the way that it should be. Thank you.
Okay, and now it's 8 o'clock or a little after, so we'll have our concluding remarks, and we'll begin in the reverse order where we began. So, Mr. Pico, you go first. Please bring the microphone up, and you have 2 minutes, and Ms. Woodward will time.
Okay, what I wanted to say before to Ben is I used a poor word of attack. I am not a person that attacks people. I just want to apologize if it offended you. But what I like to say is if there's anything here tonight that I have said that would make you feel that I would be a good candidate or a good council person, please, get out and vote for me. But I'm a hardworking man, and there's a lot of hardworking people in this town, and I want to see them stay here. I mean, I love the town. I can't tell you how much I love the town. It's just like impossible. The reason why we moved back is because I love the town. We left town for a while to take care of a family matter, and we came back, and I have a goal in life. One of the goals that I have was to be on the Madison Council to help Madison go to the future. There's a lot of technology out there that Madison has been working with recently, and I feel that being on the council, given my perspective on things, I mean, I will ask questions only because if I feel that we're not getting the right information, I will ask the questions about that, especially with the road, the conditions of our roads is very important. My background in that area would help them make a decision as to what needs to be done. I mean, if you have the same type of people on the council with the same type of background, when these issues come up, they're only going to rely on what other people tell them. But if I'm there, I'll be able to when somebody says why, I'll be able to say why not. And I feel that the taxpayers of Madison deserve somebody with my background, because every tax dollar counts. And when I'm elected, I will make sure that we spend our tax dollars in the best way that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Hoover, you're next.
Thank you. One of my strengths is doing and accomplishing. I don't just sit on the sidelines and critique. I get in and I fix things. I do things. I walk the talk. I believe the issues most on everyone's minds are taxes. We want to work to reduce the residential utility rates by 10% and work to have no tax increase in 2013. Preserving a core set of desired services, maintaining and where possible reducing costs, and ensuring collegial, meaningful debate. The services provided by the Health Department, Police Department, and Fire Department add a measurable value to the quality and preservation of life in Madison. I also recognize the need to improve the infrastructure, eliminate unnecessary redundancies, and continue to support the many, many volunteer activities and attract and retain businesses. Downtown Madison is beautiful, and there have been many efforts to encourage people to buy, shop, eat, and enjoy music and other activities, such as the annual Farmers Market and the Summer Concert Series. These efforts need to be continued and expanded. In addition, the borough needs to be a source of revenue and service. Okay, we can use similar models that we have right now. It's time to focus on revenue and provide a defined set of needed services at reasonable minimal cost. I retired from a full-time employment in early 2009. During my nearly 7 years at AIG, I was most recently the Senior Global Operations Management Training Manager, responsible for delivering performance management planning, training globally, and developing training programs that support country operations manager competency, customer service, and various software implementations. Okay. Prior to joining AIG, I had over 35 years in a variety of capacities in public and private sector financial services and managing large operations, including being the Chief Federal Reserve Examiner on the staff of the Federal Reserve Board. My education includes a BS in economics from Fordham and an MBA in marketing and management from Golden Gate Universities. If you choose me to represent you, you will be electing a proven leader, teacher, and problem solver who will work diligently for an affordable and well-maintained Madison. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Bailey, and if you could bring the mic up to you.
Got it. Many thanks to the League and those of you who are here tonight. I'm asking for your vote on November 6th. I believe Ben Wojciechowicz and I are the right people to serve on council. We support an open and transparent government. We support strategic long-range planning and a comprehensive capital plan. We support a thoroughly transparent budget process. We support expanded shared services. We support sustainability and a healthy environment. And we support Madison's assets, including our schools and universities, our arts and library, our train station, our recreation, and our parks. And we also support open space, recreation, and historic preservation. If elected, Ben and I will restore balance, openness, accountability, consensus, and bipartisan cooperation. I have experience. I have demonstrated that party affiliation should be left at the council door. I served under Republican mayors, sitting with both Republicans and Democrats, working to give residents the services they deserve while being mindful of the bottom line. My experience, dedication, and integrity make me the right choice to serve you again. Please vote November 6th. Thank you.
And finally, Mr. Wolkowitz.
Thank you. Well, obviously, I would also like your vote. And I can explain why by way of anecdote. Most of you, if not all of you, have probably gotten one of these in your mailbox. It has a line here saying accountable, transparent, respectful council leadership. When there was a discussion underway as to whether or not to use that language, I was the nay vote. But I've learned throughout my career how to compromise, and so here it is. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized that this had true meaning. I went into this campaign thinking we would be talking about issues. Tonight we began to touch on them a bit, but we haven't gotten anywhere close to where I was hoping we'd be. We put up 5 working papers on our website. We stopped writing them because our opposition never seemed to read them. We challenged them to do that. We wanted to have open, free, detailed discussions about all the aspects of this town that are of concern. Do I have a background where I can handle financial problems? Yes, I think so. Am I inclined to be accountable? I've been accountable my whole life. Transparent? Anyone who worked for me never had to ask, where do I stand? Because they knew. They never had to ask, where are we going in this company? Because they knew. And in the same way, you'll never have to ask me, if you elect me to council, why I voted the way I did, where I think we should be going, how I think we should be spending our money. And finally, I'm respectful. And I wish I could say the same of everyone else who I've been dealing with in government for the last couple of years. But unfortunately, we had the incident we spoke of earlier. Ostry, who's given 24 years of her life to work for this town, and she certainly didn't do it for reasons of wealth or income, was denigrated on Bottle Hill Day.
Thank you.
by a poster we all know too much about. And that has to stop, and we will stop it if elected.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our program tonight. You've been a wonderful audience, and I want to give a special acknowledgement to the candidates, because the League of Women Voters would do many more of these, but in many municipalities, the candidates won't come before the public. So you should be very proud in Madison. If you need an absentee ballot application, we have them on the table. They're due on the 30th of this month. The League also has 2 pieces of paper, one for each ballot question, an objective analysis of the pros and cons of each ballot question. Please help yourself. They're on the table. And remember to vote. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you.